everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Lawn Fawn, and in today's video, we are creating a shutter card with some very curious and exploring mice. So when I first had this idea, I took out the stamp sets that I thought I would use, and I placed them on just this plain white cardstock that I die cut out from the shutter card, just to give me an idea how my scene was going to look. Once I knew that this would work, I took a picture so I can save that setup. Now I'm going to start by actually decorating my shutter card. So here I have some pieces already die cut. Now this piece has the stitched circle in the center and stitching along the edges. That was using the shutter card add-on, so that is all ready to go. Then I have the base piece. So this is our shutter card. And on there in the center there, you can see that are some indentations in there. We want to make sure that those lines are closest to the top. So we know that our cardstock is always in the right position. And then we have two of these flag pieces, and both of those came from the regular shutter card die. I want to create a scene in the inside, so I am taking some repositionable tape. I put that on the back of my panel, and this is just temporarily securing my cardstock to my work surface. And again, to make sure that my cardstock is in the right orientation, those indentations I showed you before, we want to make sure that they are closest to the top half of our card. So I took the slimline grassy stencil, I taped it down over my work surface, and I love these slimline stencils because they stretch all the way across this cardstock. And then I'm starting by ink blending with Distress Oxide ink. This light color, this is Twisted Citron, is going to give me a nice bright base. Then I'm going to come in with Mowed Lawn. So this is still leaving that stencil in place, just coming in towards the bottom and blending up. So I'll have some nice bright grass at the top and a little bit darker towards the bottom. I'll remove the stencil. I'm going to line it up with that grass that I just ink blended. So I'm masking that off, holding that down with some washi tape. And then I'm going to bring in the slimline cloudy stencil. Again, this stretches across the entire front of my cardstock. So I don't have to worry about really moving that or connecting my cloud lines. Now for the clouds, I am going to use salvaged patina. And I'm going to just lightly blend starting on the stencil and blending onto the cardstock so it gives me some nice fluffy clouds. I picked up the stencil, shifted it down a little bit and over, blend in some more clouds, and I'll continue that down the card front. So I'm always kind of shifting it to the right or the left a little bit, or actually flipping the stencil because we can either flip it so it is backwards or upside down. We have lots of cloud options for that. And then down towards the bottom where the grass is, I start on the stencil of the grass and blend up just to kind of fill that area in. Now, still leaving the grassy stencil mask in place, I want to add these clouds to that rectangle piece that has the window in it. So I really want to have a nice continuous scene. I put some repositionable tape on the back of that. I lined it up so it was flush with the top of my card panel. And then I am taking the stencil and I'm pretty much retracing my steps. So I'm lining up the stencil with the clouds I already have on my background. And then once again, going over those areas with the blending brush. So it really looks like a nice seamless scene. There's no stops and starts on there. And once I get down towards the bottom, I'm just going to do the same thing as I did before, blending up a little bit to kind of fill in that area. But now I do still have the grass at the bottom, that nice bright white space. So I will shift my grassy stencil up and I am going to ink blend that same Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn. So that way here it's nice and continuous as well. Now, after I'm done blending and I remove that rectangle piece, there is a little bit of marks on my cardstock, little white areas. I don't know why that happened, but it doesn't matter. No one's going to see it because my rectangle panel is going to be over the top of that. But I need to have, or I want to have, my flag window areas. These are the parts that are actually going to move. I want these to be continuous as well. So what I did for that is I am placing Post-it tape over the flap that is actually going to have adhesive on it. And then remember those etched lines that are on our cardstock? I kind of lined up my flag piece with those kind of indentations and then shifted it over just a little bit. So all of my creases, the flag and my card base are going to line up. And then I went through and just repeated that process of lining up my stencil with my already blended background and adding little bits of those cloud stencils to my flag pieces. Now, one of the reasons that I am masking off that tab on the sides, that is where our adhesive is going to go to attach those to our cardstock or our card base. And I have learned in the past that if I have ink on my areas where I want to put adhesive, my adhesive doesn't like to stick very well. So I just find it's a safe bet to mask it off when possible. And also, when I'm ink blending, I am not applying a lot of pressure and I'm trying not to go too far over the other side of the cardstock because I don't want to make any areas of my clouds darker than the rest of the cardstock, if that makes sense. Now I'm bringing my pieces over to my splat box and I am going to add white splatters. This is just some white paint that I mixed with a little bit of water and tapping it on with a paintbrush. And this is going to go on all of those ink blended scenes that I just did. I'm going to set all of these pieces off on the side to dry and I am going to work on my stamping. So the stamp sets that I am using is It's a Bird, I Heart Pandas add-on, and Toucan Do It. Now, maybe toucans aren't in with the bamboo trees, but I thought they were just super cute and kind of fit into this whole out in the wild thing. So my mice are out exploring, they're looking at different things out in nature, and I thought the toucans was just kind of a fun fit. I have 80-pound white cardstock placed in my stamp wheel, and I lined up all of the images that I'm going to be using, inked them up with the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink, and then I'm going to stamp them down. Now, after I'm done stamping, I am going to leave my stamps in place because sometimes I do like to bring my cardstock back and stamp over the top of it again with the black ink to just kind of make all that black come back to the forefront and really make the colors pop. Now I'm going to jump into the coloring. So I am using Olo markers, which is an alcohol marker. And the first set of colors I'm using is for the bamboo. Now for the leaves, I am using YG 1.2. And then I'm coming in with flicks of 1 point or YG 1.6. So not really a lot of blending, just adding the flicks of that darker color to give those leaves some contrast. Now for the actual bamboo stalks, I am going to start in each section. I color each section separately, starting with the YG 1.6 at the bottom of the section. Then I'll come in with YG 1.4 and finish off with the YG 1.2. So I have that really nice dark color towards the bottom where each bamboo piece is separate. I'm going to use those same colors and finish off the rest of the bamboo stalks off screen and move into the coloring of the mice. The colors I picked out for the mice are going to be some nice warm browns. I have O 4.6, O 4.3, and O 4.1. And I really look at the direction that my mice are standing. So that first one I just colored, he is kind of facing to the left-hand side. So to me, that's where his light source is going to be. So I added the darker shade to the right. Same thing with this guy with the binoculars. I feel like the darker side or the shadow side is going to be on the right hand side. So that is where I started with the darker, smaller marker and then blended out. Now, for this last one here, he's kind of looking up and off to the right. So I'm going to put my shadow area on the left. Every now and then, if I feel like I lost some of that darker color, I'll come back in with the medium color, which for the mice here is the 04.3, just to add a little bit more contrast. For the bellies, I am using OR 4.1, not really doing any shading, just kind of put that color in there. And then for the ears, I have R 0.2. For their clothing and safari hat, I'm going to be using kind of some deep mossy greens. I have YG 8.7, YG 8.5, and YG 8.3. And I'm going to color them in the same way that I did with their bodies, just looking at the direction of their body, which way they are pointing to help me decide where the light source should be. I think a light brown or khaki colored safari clothing would have been really cute, but since I already colored the mice brown, I wanted their clothes to kind of stand out a little bit more. So for the ears, I brought in, I think it was an R 0.3, or not the ears, the nose. And then I'm working on the rock. So for the rock, I am using CG5, CG3, and CG1. And for that first big one, I added the darker shades on the left and the right because that's kind of going to be in the center of my card front. And I brought in a CG7 and just added little dots to the edges to kind of give it a little bit more of a textured look. And I'm also using those cool grays for the binoculars. Then I'm going to work on my toucans. And for this, I am starting with the CG7, adding that darker area. And I'll work through CG5 and CG3. I don't think I went all the way to CG1. So, for instance, this toucan, I used that same kind of formula I did with the mice. It is facing to the left. So I added the darkest shade on the right and blended out. Now, this little guy can be a little confusing. His body kind of faces to the left, but he's looking to the right. So I put the dark shade on the left-hand side. Now, for the beak, I just came in with a couple different oranges and a couple different shades of yellow. Then for the pandas themselves, I really didn't need to add any color to them, but I do like to add something. And typically you would probably grab like a warm gray, but I went for my light blues, which is BG11 and BG10 out of the Copic marker section. So they're very clean bears. They're not very dirty bears. Now that all of my coloring is done, I popped that back into the corner of my stamp wheel, same place I had it before, and I'm going to ink up all of my images again with the jet black ink and stamp that down. Now, I know this can be scary for some, but I'm pretty confident that I got it placed in the right position. Plus, I can see through the stamp wheel cover, so I can kind of see if things are not lined up right. But I like doing this just to kind of really add that black back in there, and I think it makes the colors pop a little bit more. So I lined up all the coordinating dies, die cut them out, and then I was gonna start working on the assembly of my card, but as I flipped it over, I remembered that I needed to decorate the panels that are gonna fold over to create the front of our card. So this is the back side of my ink blended panel that I had already done. I masked off the center area, lined up all of my stencils again using those same colors. That's why I kind of am going through this pretty fast. It's the same colors, same technique as I did for the inside. And I masked off the center because for one, I did not want to get ink on those top and bottom tabs, and I just really liked having that clean back. Now we're going to take these and we're going to fold them towards the inside. There are score lines in there that the die provided, and I'm reinforcing those folds with my bone folder. So these should meet up perfectly in the center. Then we have our folds at the top and the bottom. So again, just folding those in towards the inside of the card and reinforcing those folds. We have our flags. So those two have the folds on them, and these are going to fold behind. So we're going behind our ink blended area. Now we're going to take some 1/4 inch double-sided tape. I actually added 2 strips of the double-sided tape to each tab. You really only need 1, but I did 2. So the main thing is you want to make sure you just have good coverage on these tabs. So I am removing the backing from that, and I'm going to bring this up closer to show you where we're going to line this up. So here on our card, it's a little hard to see with my ink blended area, but there are those indentations that the die provided. We are going to line up those edge tabs with those indentations. It's going to fit perfectly in there. Line it up. It's also going to be flush with the fold, and then just fold that over. And so that flag piece is going to stick and kind of creates our window where our interactive piece is going to be. So I'm going to repeat those steps for the other side. I did make sure that I had these. I guess it's kind of makes sense on what side it is once I did the stenciling, but I did kind of have them placed on my desk, which one was going to be the right and which one was going to be the left. So I didn't get them mixed up or flipped upside down because we don't want upside down clouds. So now we have our 2 flag pieces attached on each side of our card. We're taking that 1/4 inch double-sided tape again, and we're adding it to the flaps that fold in towards the inside. So that is why I kept those free of ink. Now, before we attach our center piece, I'm going to pause this for a second to show you. So with our 2 pieces at the top and the bottom that create that diamond shape. So the top piece up there, my triangle or my flag is over the top, and then the triangle on the bottom is underneath. So you want them to be opposites of each other. So I am going to hold that there in place with my hand, and then I can remove the backing on that double-sided tape at the top, and I can start placing my rectangle piece over there. So I'm lining that up flush with the top of my panel, and I'm going to make sure I'm holding those triangles in place so that one is on the top, one is at the bottom. Hold that down, and then I can go ahead and remove the backing of the double-sided tape at the bottom and secure that in place. So now we have a working shutter card. Once we kind of open and close it, you're going to see how that window pops open to reveal something in the inside. And having such a cohesive scene with the stenciling was such a satisfying feeling to get that to work out the way it did. I don't like when my clouds are like kind of off centered or skewed up a little bit on the card. So that was a very satisfying feeling to get all of those clouds to work out the way they did. Now I can start building up my scene. Now I am using tape runner to secure everything in place, but I try not to really press down on anything until I'm 100% sure that that is where it's going to go and that I don't want to add anything behind it. So once I know exactly where things are and I'm fairly confident with it, then I can go ahead, push down, and it'll secure in place. One thing I did have to be careful of is I didn't want anything to get on those like flag areas because that's going to move. That's going in and out when we open and close the card. So I had to keep everything kind of off on the side and underneath. And being that we have this interactive mechanism in here, I'm not going to add any foam squares to anything because I don't want to add too much more bulk to this. I do have a few things that are kind of hanging off the edge just a little bit, so I will flip that over and snip that off when I'm done. Now, I need to stamp a sentiment. I decided to stamp directly inside of that window. So I placed this back into my stamp wheel, which has a sticky mat in there, and that's holding my card base in place while I lined up the sentiment and stamped that down using black ink. And that sentiment came from I Heart Pandas stamp set. Now, I do need to create a belly band to hold my card shut. So I am using some blue, I think it's like pastel blue pearlescent vellum. It's just a really pretty shiny color. I die cut two pieces and then I fold it along the score lines. Now I am adding tape runner to one of the tabbed ends, lining that up with the other flat edge to connect one long piece. Now, once I slide this over the card, we can see the adhesive. I'm not worried about what it looks like on the back of the card as far as seeing the adhesive because they're going to need to take that off anyway to open the card. But for the front of the card, I do want to cover that up. And I had an extra panda that didn't quite fit in my scene. So I just took a circle that actually was die cut out from the shutter card add on piece. So this was something that was just left over. I ink blended around it with a light blue and then just added that simple, cute little panda to the center. And before I call this card good, the one last thing that I wanted to do was add some white gel pen highlights. So I opened this back up, added that to my bamboo, the toucan, and also my mice and the panda bears. So now that completes my card. So when I open this up, we have this really cute scene. It's not overly done. I think it's just the right amount to build up that scene where my cute little mice are sightseeing all of these adorable creatures. I had a lot of fun creating this card. I haven't created a shutter card in a while and mix and matching it with some new and old products. I hope this inspires you to create an interactive shutter card. Thanks so much for joining. Bye.